All right, Pepsiti, white supremacy, colonizer fatigue. I have no clue what this is about, but I enjoy Pepsiti. I'm starting it off strong. I'm definitely going to be checking it out.
If someone tries to put you down for your origin or your culture or ideas, here's what you can say. One of the most subtle forms of disrespect isn't always loud. Sometimes it shows up as assumptions. And the assumption is that if something didn't come from the West, it must be less advanced, or that somehow your intellectual tradition needs some kind of validation from somewhere else to be taken seriously. But history does not support this mindset. Long before many modern Western states even
technically, history does support this mindset because nothing became credible until the white man wrote it down. Even though places throughout history already knew certain things, like the Aztecs, India, like a lot of these barbaric locations for thousands of years knew that the earth was round. People were still being killed just a couple hundred years ago in the white communities for saying the earth was round and not flat, or the fact that, oh, we're not the center of the universe. They were getting killed for that just a couple hundred years ago when a lot of the rest of the world knew that wasn't the case. But it wasn't until it was jotted down by a white man did it actually become credible, which is absolutely insane. That's the real problem, is the fact that it only becomes credible when the white man jots it down. And the sad thing is, it's just, why can't we just go and rewrite things where it becomes acknowledged, like, oh, you know what? It's kind of funny, but yeah, you know how like a couple hundred years ago we were still, executing people for saying we're not the center of the solar system, the sun is, or the earth is round. We were of course we still have flat earthers now, but the earth is round. Yeah, those people weren't actually smart. They were just saying and regurgitating what other cultures had found out thousands of years prior. I think that's what needs to be said. That's what needs to be put in textbooks, because the fact that it's like, oh, just so you know, this happened at this point in time. Well, state the facts that people knew about it way in advance. I think that would be a plus. So that way, people don't grow up in these cultures thinking that they have this elitist kind of mindset. Look at my skin tone. I am of the skin tone that solved everything. No.
Existed. A country like India already had developed the Upanishads, exploring deep questions about consciousness, existence, and reality. The Bhagavad Gita examined duty, it examined ethics, leadership, and moral conflict in
Dominant
ways that
culture?
still resonate
Yeah,
in modern philosophy.
right now.
Kautilya's Arthashastra laid out detailed ideas on governance, on economics, on intelligence, as well as on strategy. And this is centuries, by the way, before similar frameworks even appeared in Europe. The Buddha offered insights into suffering, into desire, and the mind that today align closely with modern psychology and cognitive science. And Swami Vivekananda reminded the world that progress is not only material, but also moral and spiritual.
And this is why when people say not all cultures are equal, it holds especially true for India. Indian culture, philosophy, it's about the world, the universe, human consciousness, transcending it, exploring yourself. It doesn't waste time on something as shallow and trivial as racial superiority. It says that humans are petty creatures who will keep inventing constructs like race to satisfy their egos.
Now, even within Western traditions, serious thinkers have altogether rejected intellectual arrogance, and Edmund Burke is one of them. He emphasized the importance of inherited wisdom and social continuity. Alistair MacIntyre argued that moral reasoning is always shaped by tradition, not detached from it. So, if someone tries to dismiss your background or imply that your intellectual heritage is less than, the response is not anger, it's actually clarity. You can simply say, listen, no civilization has a monopoly on wisdom, and then stand by it.
This is the problem with white supremacists like this guy. They're believing something as shallow, nonsensical, and unscientific as racial superiority.
Why 1.2 what? Why 1.2 billion Indians worship cow poop? It's just clickbait. It's just clickbait. And I'm pretty sure he knows nothing about the topic. He just knows it will go viral.
As racial superiority. They just cannot accept that the greatest and oldest works of human civilization, the Vedas, the Upanishads, essentially everything written in India, or Bharat to be more accurate, could emerge from a place like Bharat. So they began propagating a false and misleading idea called the Aryan invasion myth to satisfy their shallow sense of superiority. I'll talk about that in a moment.
Because Confidence is not about proving superiority. It's actually about refusing inferiority. A strong mind does not reject other traditions. It does not imitate them blindly either. It engages, it learns, it questions, and it contributes on equal footing.
Inferiority.
Yeah, sorry, Pepziti, I'm cutting you off right there. That's the thing. It's just like, that's how I've always lived my life. I've always had that kind of, I don't want to say that I'm superior to anyone, but it's just like, I always had the mindset of, like, I remember, like, even when I was a kid, I remember watching Yu Yu Hakusho, and I was like 10 years old, and it was a rerun. I was 10 years old, and there was it was one of the first few, it was the first season, one of the first fight sequences, and there was a monk who was fighting with his fists that had the Nazi symbol tattooed on his forehead. I looked that thing up immediately. I was like, why the heck is this here? I looked it up. I found out that, guess what? That originated as a sign of like peace, as a sign of like love, as a sign. It was basically co-opted by the Nazis, even though the Nazis weren't technically using that sign. They actually just used it to try and hunt down the Aryans. So yeah, I mean that's the only reference. Like that's the only real reference with the Nazis ever had, like with India, was trying to hunt down the Aryans. Like, I found out so much of my own just out of curiosity, just off of watching anime, than most people. Because I remember after that, I was like talking with my mother about the origins of the swastika and how it was, and like, no, now it's a sign of hate. Like, oh, okay. Okay. Because I remember that conversation vividly as a kid, and talking with my mother about it because I was fascinated to learn that. And then she was like, no, it's a sign of hate. When no, it isn't. It's just so many people have forgotten or don't even know the origins of it. They have completely lost the plot. They just believe whatever they're told. And it's sad because the same thing, like, it's happened over and over and over again. I've always been more of a free thinker, thinking for myself, looking things up for myself. And I've always hated like the group think. Following the masses. So many people do that, and it's absolutely devastating, especially when you see it in your own family and they unknowingly are doing it. Like, I love my mother, but every now and then it's like sometimes you'll say something and they just can't register it because you're thinking of things in a completely different way than most people, because free thinking, it's kind of lost its and people have just lost the ability to freely think. Luckily, I never got out of that. I still have the mind of a child. At least I did as I was when I was a child. Curious, always wanting to learn more, always trying to find out. Never thinking myself superior just because of who I am. I mean, sure, I'm still an arrogant person. Oh, that's not good. I'm still an arrogant person, but I enjoy my life. I know what I do in my life. Yeah, I keep my head on my shoulders. I find out what I don't know, and I'm honest about what I don't know. I'm always curious to learn more. It's the people who are absolute about everything, refuse to even listen. And this is kind of how I felt. Like, I was 10 years old talking to my mother, and I was feeling kind of like this, where I was telling her about the origins of the swastika, and she was completely unreceptive to it because in her head, it only means one thing, and she refuses to understand the history of it. And it was kind of like aggravating to like try and talk with your parent about it as a kid. Like, it's just like, why not? Why aren't you just gonna listen? Why can't you open your mind of it? Because it's such a strong sign of hatred to some people. And then they close their minds to more information. Yeah, but it happens a lot.
Superiority both stem from misplaced confidence. When you understand how things actually work, when you realize that the melanin in your skin does not determine your attractiveness, when you learn to detach personal biases and prejudices from objective information, life becomes clearer and easier to navigate. Hi guys, happy Independence Day. This is what colonizers looked like in the past. And this is what they look like now, slouched on their couches with a bag of chips, after realizing that colonization was a myth.
Did the Independence Day just pass by? Did it? I remember saying Happy Independence Day last year. Did it already pass by? What? My wife forgot to remind me. He just popped up out of nowhere saying that. Did it just happen? It didn't happen. I thought it was closer to the end of the year, right? It's tomorrow? Okay. So he just popped it in here. Okay, he popped it in here for whatever guys are gonna say. It's just like, I'm like, what the heck? I had no idea. I was like, I thought it was a little bit later. Okay. So I was right. I was thinking it was probably next month, but it is a little later. Oh, 15th, so it'd be tomorrow. Yeah, it's tomorrow.
It's a mistake. Because Great Britain is no longer great. Despite having destroyed the richest country on earth, the Nazi state doesn't even exist anymore. So our propaganda detector has found another cynical, dishonest grifter trying to hate farm views from India. He hides behind a Fox intellectual centrist persona to appease white supremacists and xenophobic internet trolls. There's nothing special about this channel, apart from the fact that he openly hates Jews.
Gosh. So, hating Indians, hating Jews, what other department can I hate to make a ton of views? What other group of people can I absolutely despise to get a ton of views? I don't understand it. Why do people do this?
I had to endure his last video on India, which was supposedly about cow dung, but turned out to be about everything except that. You can check out that idiocracy if you want. He starts his video with the biggest lie in the history of humanity, the Aryan invasion myth, a 19th century colonial propaganda tool with zero archaeological or genetic evidence. It essentially claims that North Indians came from Europe as Aryans, the so-called superior race. According to this myth, Sanskrit, the Vedas, the Upanishads, and the majority of Indian philosophy and literature are actually European in origin. The colonizers simply couldn't digest the fact that while they were still learning to communicate in tribal jungles, Indians were already composing some of the most sophisticated literature and technologically advanced tools of human civilization.
The Aryan invasion theory, AI.
Yeah, and this stuff, like, again, this stuff is so freaking ridiculous. Like, I've heard the Aryan invasion theory. I've heard, like, even the counterpoint to it, where it's like India's the source of the entire world. Like, what was it? I think I watched the Beer and Biceps. One guy talking, and he was just like, oh, look at these skeletal structures. Look what they look like when they're rendered. They look Indian. I'm like, that one looks Native American. That looks like a white person with Down syndrome. The last one looks like it could be an Indian. But it was just like, I'm like, you're looking at it through bias. I was looking at it just being honest. But yeah, it's just like everyone will have their tendencies instead of just, and again, we will never know 100% factual. Like, we can get close to it with like 90%, because it was like there was that one, especially in like Indus Valley, that iconography from there where they're like comparing it to like Lord Shiva, and then you had this one a historian saying no, this is Islam. It's from Islam, and I'm like, okay, you could say that there probably is some evidence, maybe 2%, that could be, well, even though there's like 0, but it's like 98%, related to Indian culture, Indian history. So that's just how it's so insane. It's so insane how historians aren't historians anymore. They're all just bias pushers, propaganda pushers. It's just insane.
IT is a sophisticated myth fabricated in the past 200 years. It has 3 goals. First, to establish the Europeans as a superior race to Indians. Second, to claim that Sanskrit and Vedas were imported into India and hence Hinduism's foundations are not
Thanks
Indian.
for the love, Sam.
Third, to establish divisions among Indians that prevent a cohesive national identity. AIT is an umbrella narrative which ties many different points together, all of which are false. For example, Sanskrit and Vedas were imported from Europe. Aryans and Dravidians are different races. Dravidians and Dalits are the blacks of India, while upper castes are the whites of India. Caste system is a hierarchy of oppression. Brahmins have always exploited others.
I'm a government
Dravidians
worker.
were originally Christians.
Notice how all of these aspects are present in some form in the modern brown sepoys, the India haters. And no, criticizing India or its government does not make someone a sepoy. I'm talking about those who despise everything Indian, its culture, its history, even its languages. And the extreme ones even go so far as to justify colonialism and the deliberate killing of millions of Indians.
AIT claims that a foreign race of fair-skinned Aryans invaded India thousands of years ago. They are said to have originated somewhere across the vast region from Eastern Europe to Central Asia, but no precise location has ever been found. There is no archaeological or other scientific evidence in those foreign lands to support that Aryans lived there. Despite millions of dollars of funding, all attempts have failed to prove that Europeans came and populated.
The thing I don't understand is why do so many people... I'm not repeating that. I'm not repeating that. But why do so many people run into that kind of... I come at life through a different kind of mindset. Ever since I was a kid, like I was saying before, ever since I was a kid, I was always curious, always wanting to find out more, never believing that I'm 100% correct about everything. Being a kid and being like everything you hear about me is 100% true from a certain point of view. I learned what I learned from movies. I learned what I learned from like doing research. One of my movies is like everything you hear about me is 100% view from a certain point of view. That's Obi-Wan Kenobi's line. How he lied to Luke Skywalker about how his father died. Like it resonated with me because it's like, yeah, no matter what, Luke Skywalker was told a lie about his father and believed it to be so until he found out who his father truly was. I mean, it's just, a lot of stuff. It's about how you perceive things. It's about how you look at things. It's like, yeah, I mean, I've always had the interest of learning, always had the interest of finding out and never believing like I would always joke, especially in church, I'd always blaspheme because it was like, there are only a few people that are perfect. I'm one of them. I'm in church, and I'm talking about how I'm on par with Jesus Christ. Everyone would look at me like I'm going to hell, but I'm just talking about like, why? Who are we to judge? Who are we to be angry towards other people? And I'm just trying to have fun. I'm just trying to poke and see how far I can push things. But at the same time, I'm not going to be disrespectful, even though that might be disrespectful to some people. I viewed it as always viewed it as funny because I'm curious to find out more. I'm always curious to find out more. I'd be the person that was sitting down arguing with the pastors. Because it's just that not everything makes sense. Not everything makes sense. And I was always interested to learn. Always interested to learn. And that's the point. You have to always be curious. Always be curious. And always be open to having your reality shattered. Always be open to having your reality shattered. Like just imagine the sky cracking and then there's just a bunch of cameras up there watching you. We're nothing but a game for some celestial body. I wouldn't care. I wouldn't be surprised. I'd be like, that might explain one or two things. I mean, it'd still be weird, but it'd explain one or two things.
In India
Chile.
a long time ago.
They did all of this just to tell Indians, hey, that's not yours. Imagine simply existing, living your normal
Since you
life,
were a
and someone
kid, you
from
were
the other side
legit
of the world
nice.
suddenly starts saying, actually, the things you've been doing for thousands of years, the legacy of your ancestors, your culture, it's not yours. And we're spending millions upon millions of dollars just to prove this. It's hilarious.
AIT claims these Aryans brought Sanskrit to India and wrote the Vedas. This is so ridiculous. Rigved, Samved, Yajurved, and Atharvaved all are claimed to be developed thousands of miles away from India and brought here by foreigners. Actually, there is plenty of evidence proving Sanskrit and Vedas originated in India. There is solid geological and astronomical correlation between the Vedas and the Saraswati Valley civilization and the Himalayan region. The archaeological evidence supporting that Sanskrit and Vedas originated in India keeps growing every year. We also have genealogical evidence. We know which rishis saw each of the Vedic hymns. Many Indian families trace their lineage back to these rishis. Several Guru Sampradayas trace their origin to the Vedic rishis.
The saddest part is that some Indians actually fall for this propaganda. And in no time, they start viewing colonization as a gift meant to civilize India.
AIT is a political device to break up India, just like it was during British times. British used this theory to inject an inferiority complex in Indians and make them fight each other. The divide and rule strategy has 3 steps. First, concoct that some people are oppressed. Second, brand a community as the oppressors. Third, encourage a victimhood complex in the oppressed group to make them vulnerable to new loyalties. AIT wants Dravidians to see themselves as oppressed and to reject Sanskrit and Vedas as Aryan imports into India. Hinduism is to be rejected because it is based on the Vedas. This ideology is used to divide India's north and south.
If you believe this stupidity long enough, you will inevitably end up hating your own country, its culture, its people. And when this propaganda is forced down your throat in the form of academic...
The funny thing is a lot of this stuff is being done in the US now. Like the people who hate their own, who look at their skin tone and think they're the problem with society. I'm so sorry I was born white. I'm so sorry. Will you forgive me? I have no control over this, but please forgive the nonsense, the sheer guilt towards it. Like, why? Why? You have no control over who you are. All you could do is like, what is it that, again, I say this quite a bit. Be the good you want to see in the world. Be the good you want to see in the world. Do you just want to see people apologizing for something that's out of their control? No. No. You should actively be doing something to better the world. You should actively be doing something to better the world. What am I doing? I'm just having fun. I'm just having fun. I just want to have fun in life, and I want to see more people having fun in life and doing their thing and speaking out. More people should speak out, especially when they start seeing things go a little too far. Like, I enjoy watching Pepsi. I enjoy, you forgive me. Thank you, cool. Thank you. I should have gotten my dad's dark skin. Like, you look at my dad, he's like, trying to find a comparison. Okay, he's like the color of this wood here. So, maybe a little lighter, but yeah, he's as dark as this. He's as dark as this. That's my dad. Oh, but yeah, look at me. I got my mother's skin complexion, which is funny, is like I'm darker than my mother. So me and my brothers all got like a bit of tint, but not enough, apparently. So now we do need to go around apologizing.
Research in schools and colleges, it becomes even harder to see beyond it. Gradually, you begin cultivating a skeptical, pessimistic mindset about Bharat as a civilization. You start searching for flaws in everything Indian. It's like a mental disease. To counter the Aryan invasion theory, there is something called the out of India theory. It suggests that Indians, as Aryans, migrated outward and gave rise to the Indo-European languages, while also playing a role in civilizing Europe. According to this view, they were the people of the Indus Valley civilization, and anyone with common sense can see which theory makes more sense and which civilization existed first.
Right. And I have never made the claim that all human civilization came from India. It is clear from all the best evidence that we have today, the best scientific data that we have today, it demonstrates that there was an out of Africa migration about 75,000 years before today. And the best evidence that we have also demonstrates that the first founders zone outside of Africa was India. So I have never made the claim that human civilization came from India. Right? And why is the out of India theory superior to the Aryan invasion theory? It hasn't been demonstrated in a peer-reviewed scientific paper. So there is no single scientific paper that talks about the Aryan invasion theory or the out of India theory. All these scientific papers are individual data points. It's only when we take all of these data points together that we form a big picture which completely disproves the Aryan invasion theory. But if you want to see one image that that demonstrates that the out of India theory is correct, then let me show you that one image. This is the image of the
It's funny, I was just talking about this. You have the Native American, you have the retarded white man, and this is probably what looks the most Indian. This looks the most Indian. Like, his argument gets kind of put invalid at this because, again, you just put a headband with a few feathers in it, and he's Native American. A white man with Down syndrome, and then just an Indian. I mean, that's how I see it, but I have no skin in the game. I have no leg in the race. So for me, it's like, I'm not going to look at it and see what I want to see. I just see what, well, I don't know the correct way to say that, because it's not like I want to see a Down syndrome white person, but it's one of them. It's one of them. But you can't claim that this is all Indian, especially when you got nothing but a skull structure to go off of. You can guess, but in the end, I mean, you can easily show proof of like textiles and pottery and things being influenced, like starting in India and influencing out as marketing and everything, because India was like the center of the world at a certain point in time. So everything else was copying what India was doing. So you could easily show proof of that. But I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that these are Indian.
Invaders who are the ancestors of more than 90% of Europe's men who are alive today. What do these individuals, what do these fine gentlemen look like? Do they look like Europeans? QED, I rest my case.
Then he confidently lies about the Rig Veda containing beef prohibition and the meaning of Dalit, because he knows most of his audience will never fact check him. He relies on cultural arrogance, the belief that Westerners don't need to learn about other cultures. They just need to judge them. He needs you to be disgusted, because disgust is a more powerful motivator than the nuanced, complex truth. He claims that the British did a lot to break down caste, and were the only people who started taking notes on India. Both claims are historical frauds. Historians such as Nicholas Dirks agree that the British rigidified the caste system using the 1881 census to lock fluid identities into strict administrative categories for the purpose of divide and rule. Historical figures like Megasthenes, the Chinese monk Xuanzang, and the Persian scholar Al-Biruni have extensively written about India. To see how an average intellectually lazy xenophobic propagandist from the colonial era thinks, you can go and see that video. He basically relies on his audience's ignorance, as he knows that they don't read Sanskrit, don't know the difference between Varn and Jat.
And they just want to see a hit piece. They don't care. They don't care. And when people do corrections in the comments, you know, the people that watch and will correct him in the comments, they're not going to notice that. He's only going to pin the ones that are negative. Fun fact, I learned how to pin things like the other day. First time. Someone was like, pin my comment. And I was like, okay, how do I do that? And I did it. I was like, oh, cool. I don't know. Saying pin just triggered my mind. I was like, oh, I learned how to do that the other day. I've been on YouTube for so long and I just learned how to do that. But yeah, these people are so, I don't know exactly what it is, because I'm pretty sure they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. They don't believe their rhetoric. They're just wanting to get the money. It's all about the money. They could care less about what they're saying, because people are going to watch their nonsensical video because it's going to get views. And they're going to make money off of all those views, even though they're lying to a populace that will believe their lie because they see them as a trustworthy figure. That's the problem. That's the absolute problem.
Your caste, and they won't go and fact check him.
AIT says that Aryans built a rigid caste system to prevent intermingling between Aryans and Dravidians. Dravidians became the lower caste and Dalits. So Dravidians must rise against the Brahmins because they are descendants of Aryans. The truth is that the Varnashrama system was dynamic and valued everyone's work. The British perverted it to play divisive politics. AIT makes Brahmins the target of hate-mongering. Brahmin phobia is very high today.
Yeah.
It is viciously propagated by breaking India forces in media, literary, and academic circles. So AIT has reached these following conclusions. First, oppressed equals Dravidians, Dalits, and Shudras. Second, oppressor equals Brahmins as the inheritors of Aryan superiority. Third, anti-Brahminism is the way to go. According to AIT, dark skin is inferior, fair skin is superior. But Indian civilization never cared about skin color. Some of our most sacred deities like Krishna and Kali are dark-skinned.
Varn, or the so-called caste system, was originally a theoretical framework based on a person's occupation or role in a society. It was fluid. That means a Shudra can be...
Yeah, and you could easily... Again, every single society has, like, even now, the United States of America has a caste system. We do. People refuse to accept it, but we do. Guess what? You can get a degree, well, an actual degree that actually means something, or you can go to a trade school, or you can get certificates, or you can just go into a line of work where you can climb the ranks. There are opportunities to get to where you want to go and get to a financially stable location. But the thing is, there will always be those people that have no ambition that are there to flip the burgers. Why? Because they don't have the ability to do anything other than flip a burger. So guess what? Well, they are not the lowest of the system. They would be the people who don't have a house, live homeless. Would be the lowest of the system, the homeless. And then you have the poor, which again, I'm in. I'm the poor. The poor. Then you have the lower middle class. Then you have the middle class, the high middle class, the millionaires, the billionaires. Guess what? The United States of America has a caste system. And everyone wants to get to the middle class or the high middle class. The high middle class is the safer zone. But everyone wants to get to that point. Everybody wants to get to that point. I would love to get to that point. But right now I'm here. I'm not here. I'm not here. I'm not homeless, but I'm poor. I'm poor. As soon as I put my wife to work, then I'll be up here. I won't be a millionaire yet, but I'll be up here. My wife's the genius. My wife's the one with the education. My wife's the, she's actually the one that got a degree that was worth something. I went to an art school. My degree is nothing but a piece of paper I can wipe my booty with. That's about the extent of my degree. But yeah, America has a caste system. Everywhere around the world has a caste system. And has always been there. But guess what? There were always ways of getting out of it back in the day. If it was just the barter and trading, well, guess what? You wanted to get further your career? Get a mentorship underneath a blacksmith. You're tired of being a labor hand in the field? Become a blacksmith. Become a leather worker. There was always ways of climbing the ranks.
A Brahmin, while Jati or caste refers to thousands of localized castes that evolved later. In practice, the system became rigid over centuries, merging with caste hierarchies and leading to social stratification. Modern India legally rejects caste discrimination. Then he shamelessly lies and says that the Panchagavya was a humiliation ritual forced upon the native population by Aryans to make them eat waste. Well, Panchagavya is an Ayurvedic formulation used in traditional medicine and purification rites. Far from being a tool of external degradation, it was historically used by high caste Brahmins themselves for self-penance and internal spiritual cleansing. Such practices exist in cultures across the world. Known as Dreck, Apotheke, or filth pharmacy, in 17th century Germany, physicians like Christian Paulini prescribed human and animal excrement for various ailments, believing it had healing properties. And this wasn't even in the ancient age. I could pull out countless other examples, but I hope you see the point. These pseudo-intellectual psychopaths twist facts to justify the dehumanization of people from different cultures, hence also justifying colonization and the deliberate killing of millions of innocent people. Then he calls the legal, taxed remittances sent home by Indian migrants as extractive colonization, framing their individual financial success as a hostile state-sponsored invasion by India. Well, the British Empire extracted an estimated $65 trillion from India, destroying its industries and engineering famines. In contrast, the Indian diaspora is the highest earning, most successful ethnic group. That means
It's funny. Should I? Okay, so, I would always joke with my wife that if you're going to, a doctor's office, and let's say you're going to a doctor's convention, you throw 10 rocks in the crowd, odds are 9 of them are hitting an Indian. 9 of those rocks are going to hit an Indian. 1 will hit just a white person or a black person or, some other ethnicity. 9 of them are hitting an Indian. So I was, because I had surgery, I was going to the doctor a lot. And appointment after appointment after appointment after appointment. I was going to see different doctors. Every single time, my wife was like, what? She'd look at the name of the doctor. She's like, oh, another Indian. Another Indian. It's just like, what do you expect? What do you expect? They have the know-how, they have the knowledge. I mean, there's a reason why most of the departments that are actually doing good now, I mean, Xbox is turning itself around. Why? They put an Indian in charge. And they were trying to match the DEI. They put a female Indian in charge. So many companies have put Indians in positions of power to guide the empires, to steer it towards success because they have a higher intellect. I mean, that's why I kidnapped my wife from India. She's just smarter. In general. Just in general. But yeah, again, they're everywhere here. They are everywhere here. And they're always the higher wage earners. Always. Well, not always. I mean, some of them, what they do is they send money back home so that way, hopefully, their child becomes and even more successful. Like, that's normally how it works. Is like a lot of the doctors that I have seen, most of their parents got a visa, came here to the US to work, sent money back home, made sure their daughter or son got a good education, and then their child came to the US, got a better paying job, and now they live the life of luxury.
Means he just farted out a baseless, stupid far-right argument to make his audience feel like the victims of the very people their ancestors historically looted. Then he exploits legitimate issues for his racist jokes. Nothing new with them. To be fair, Indian cow vigilantism is a real issue and the nationalist rhetoric in India deserves scrutiny. But he doesn't cover these issues to help minorities or defend human rights. He covers them just to say, oh, look at these savages, keep them out of our country. He doesn't care about the victims of cow vigilantism. He cares about using those victims to justify banning their entire diaspora. If he was honest, he would admit that Indian Americans are statistically the most successful, educated, and law-abiding immigrant group in the West. He
What was
needs
I
you
just
to
saying?
be disgusted because disgust.
And the funny thing is, I don't even need a statistic to bring that up. I just use my eyes. I go outside. I see doctors. I see accountants. I see head of like Fortune 500, like the head of like IT departments, the head of like any real like science or doctorate, or it's always going to be like an Indian there most of the time.
Is easier to sell than truth. Then again, he shamelessly lies how an Indian family allowed a cow to openly pee and poop on the floor during a Texas housewarming to show a prehistoric lack of integration. And of course, he was lying. The actual Grih Pravesh or housewarming ceremony involved two cows led quietly across a tiled floor for a blessing with no waste produced. I want to say a bunch of things about this without offending anyone, but someone on the internet said the same thing, in a nicer way. Strange world we live in. A housewarming with alcohol is called modern, but welcoming a sacred living being is called prehistoric. Well, you're not the only one who thinks it's not a neutral.
I know. The alcohol, it's just nonsense. Because I see that again. My favorite comic book strip growing up, and they got rid of it when I was still a kid, was Cow and Boy. It was just a kid who would talk to his cow, and his cow would answer his questions with more philosophical kinds of answers. I love those comic books, because it was like one panel. It was just one panel. The kid asks a question, laying on the camel's back or laying against a tree, and then camel's back, laying on the cow's back, laying against a tree, standing talking to the cow, and the cow would have a line responding. I loved it. I've always wanted a cow. I've always wanted a little pet calf. Always. Of course, they'd grow up into a cow, but I'd always wanted one.
He's just another textbook ethno-nationalist pseudo-intellectual who is hate-farming views. He isn't worth debating on history or anything. Isn't it weird? The colonizers never talk about how the evangelization of Europe destroyed the pagan, Slavic, Celtic, Norse, and Baltic religions and cultures. How the temples were destroyed, how the Greek and Roman gods were demonized, how those who didn't convert were killed. They failed to do the same to Indian religions. India managed to preserve its civilization and culture, and it continues to do so to this day. Why? Because it's an inferior culture? These xenophobic pseudo-intellectuals never tell you these things because it's against their narrative. Indian philosophy, the Vedas, and especially Vedanta, can never be Aryan or European because they're not concerned with something so shallow as race at all. They know humans are little arrogant creatures thinking they own the world. I mean, look at what happened to Hitler's Nazi dream. A human is simply a human. That is the only race that truly exists. India gained freedom from the colonizers in 1947, yet many Indians still carry a colonial gaze toward their own country. I'm certain they would find a lot to criticize about this recent development in India's space sector, which is once again being praised globally for its achievements, just as with the Moon and Mars missions.
Okay, an Indian startup did something pretty incredible recently. They just launched a rocket into orbit on its first attempt. And I mean, that almost never happens. Most rocket companies fail their first orbital launch.
Yeah, it was funny because I got a comment because I reacted to it. I got so much hate on that video too, but it's just like I reacted to the video of the launch, and they were like, it took SpaceX like 3 tries to get it up in the air, and I was like, well, India has 100% Indians working on their space program. SpaceX had about 70, so you had a 30% failure rate. So of course it took them about 3 rockets to get it right. I mean, it just the joke writes itself. The joke writes itself. That's why I was just like, it just makes sense. It clicks in my head. I mean, you have all the engineers that are in the world, well, primarily coming from India. Come from India. So it's just so freaking funny. You're just like, yeah, of course. You had 100% Indians working on the actual rocket project using engineering and everything. It makes sense. It makes sense.
It's basically expected. Skyroot Aerospace just skipped that step entirely. So with their Vikram 1 rocket, and it blasted off from ISRO's Satish Dhawan Space Center and took roughly 15 minutes to reach an orbit of around 450 kilometers. That's like threading a needle from the ground, except the needle is moving at 17,000 miles an hour, and the target is the size of a city. I'm not being dramatic here. India becomes only the 3rd country in the world with a private company that's reached orbit, after China and the United States, the 2 superpowers. The rocket itself is, I would say, scrappy by design. 3 solid fuel stages, plus a final liquid stage with a 3D printed engine that can start, stop, and restart again in space. The airframe is mostly carbon composite instead of metal, so the whole thing is lighter before it even leaves the ground. Now, this all happened just 6 years after India opened its space sector to private companies. Before that, private firms could only supply parts. Now, Skyroot's founders were ISRO engineers themselves. They took decades of proven government engineering and made it commercial. So my opinion on this is the real test isn't this launch, it's the next 3. We'll see how it goes. Also, India is doing some really cool innovations and work in tech.
You remember this Jewish guy?
Coming faster and faster. The Hindus and the Muslims are teaming up to take over Texas.
That was him before his enlightenment. This is him now.
Why are the Indians winning? You have Muslims on all 8 sides of you. You know why you're winning? Because you know who you are. You all pray and all that. You know who you are. You have your religion, you have your food, you have your ethnicity, you have your culture, everything. That's the only reason you guys are even alive. It's the only reason that you haven't been taken over by Pakistan. Because you stick to your identity. You stand up for your culture. And white people ought to learn something from the Mumbai invader here.
So you can yap all you want about Aryans, white supremacy and invasions, but
I mean, I don't entirely agree with what he's saying, because I've seen a lot of self-hate in India. I've gotten messages from a lot of self-hating, or maybe they're just Pakistani commenting, but a lot of self-hate. And Pakistanis are, let's just be honest, they're Indian. They just lost their identity. They've just lost their identity. They feel lost in the weeds. But that's the thing, just like, I don't completely agree, because again, people tend to, there are Americans that hate their own nation. There are Indians that hate their own nation. There are always going to be those people that hate their own. Always hate their own.
that doesn't change the truth. You can mislead people with misinformation, yet reality eventually emerges. If I manage to convince people that this is how the earth spins, and that Jesus was Indian because the Shroud of Turin came from India, and all these galaxies and universes that exist are part of something called Pepsiri, it doesn't change the truth. Okay, the last one might be true. What I mean is that you can come up with delusional theories driven by arrogance, false superiority, and low IQ, but the truth remains. As we say in India, Satyameva Jayate. In the context of this video's discussion, I would like to conclude with a Sanskrit verse from the Katha Upanishad, which translates to, "Arise, awake, approach the great, and learn from them."
I really enjoy Pepsiti. He always like brings up something insightful near the end. Like, it's because people need to accept who they are. I mean, you can regret like maybe what your ancestors did in the past, but just because your ancestor did something. I mean, if your father's a serial killer, does that mean you have to be? Does that mean you have to apologize for what your father did? No. You can live your own life doing whatever you want. You can change your name, you can go off on a different way. You don't have to follow in the shadow of your father just because he did something completely barbaric. You can choose to live your own life. I don't believe in guilting people into things that, well, this was sad, this happened, so because this happened 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, we should feel guilty for, no. Every like a hold, you can't own stolen. Every piece of land on planet Earth before borders were created is stolen. Every single one. But guess what? We were just hunter-gatherers. We weren't having towns. We weren't being tribal entirely. We didn't have zoned off. It was really when we got to like the agricultural aspect. That's where we started to settle down. That's where we actually started to build walls. That's where we started to actually have a civilization. Then we started to do trade, and we expanded our reach. It's just the human condition at the core. But for some reason, people view, because this thing happened a couple hundred years ago, this thing happened even like 1,000 years ago, we should feel guilty for what has happened. No, you look at history, you acknowledge what has happened, and you vow to never relive that. The problem is, so many people want to apologize about history and focus their entire life in that moment, that guess what? We're going to continue reliving that moment. Move on. Live in the here and now. Look towards a positive future. Don't focus on something that's out of your control. That's how you end up incredibly depressed. So many people who normally are unhappy, they're focusing on things they can't control. Like for me, I can't focus. I can't control my finances. Like I can't control my finances. I can either get a better job, which I'm looking into. I could get a better job, put my wife to work, or kind of make more on YouTube. But that's really all I can do at this point. That's really all I can do. So why stress? I budget, I do what I can, and I keep moving forward. I'm not going to stress on that stuff. Is it a stressor? Yeah. But I'm not going to live my life vicariously focusing on that and being completely demotivated because of that one thing. I'd rather focus on what I can control. Spending time with my wife, sitting with her, talking with her, finding out about her day, telling her about my day at work, that kind of stuff. You do what you can control. You focus on the future. Try to build a better future, a better life. Acknowledge the problems in the past, but move towards the future. Don't focus on the things you can't control. Where India will be in 2050, according to you, it's going to be a first world in, technically is, but like more knowingly a first world to the rest of the world in probably 5 to 10 years. It's fast forwarding its issues. I agree. Indians are new Jewish people of today's era. Well, I guess it's Indians and the Jews. Indians and the Jews. Since people apparently still hate the Jews for some reason. For some unknown reason.
You guys get a video? So bad.
And don't forget to like and subscribe.
Wait on that.